Hello, boils and ghouls, and welcome to this edition of 10-Minute Tutorials, where I teach you all the tips, tricks, and techniques you need to know in order to make your very own high-quality latex masks right in the comfort of your own home. In this tutorial, we're going to be covering what I like to call the simple stipple texture. It's a really easy texture to do. It's very versatile. You can use it in a lot of places, but it is what I like to refer to as an arm distance texture. And what that means is it looks okay from a distance, but if you're making a sculpt for something that you want to be as a display piece, it may be a little simplistic for something like that. However, it works really good for areas like the shoulders, the neck, top of the head, any of those areas that maybe don't have a whole lot of detail and you don't want it just to look like the raw sculpt. You want to add some interest to it. This is a very quick and easy way to do it. As a matter of fact, it's so easy. Let's go ahead and pull out the skillometer and let's see exactly how easy it really is. Well, there you have it. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, which means anybody can do this. So without any further ado, let's jump in and let's get started on this right away. So as you can see, I've been tooling around with this guy and having a lot of fun. He's almost done, and this is actually going to be a sculpting form. So don't worry about what it is. What we're going to focus on is basically this area, because that's where we're going to lay our texture down. I like to work with a fresh blank canvas. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to smoothen that up and we're going to get it all prepped and ready to do the texture. So in order to do that, we have a untrimmed chip brush. Then I have a chip brush that's been trimmed down. It's just a little bit over 1 inch in length. And then I have another chip brush, which is about 3/4 of an inch. And I have a glazing brush here. So to get started, first thing we want to do is use some odorless lighter fluid. And of course, goes without saying, anytime you use this, you want to make sure you're using caution. Don't smoke or use this near any open flames. And also make sure that you're using it in a well-ventilated area. So first, we're going to take our untrimmed brush, which I just kind of use as a mop, and we're going to get it wet in the lighter fluid. And I'm just going to lay down a nice heavy coat, starting at the top, working my way down. Do a couple of coats, get this thing really well saturated. Lighter fluid is my fluid of choice when it comes to smoothing out the clay, because this being monster clay, it really works really well, very, very quickly, and it evaporates very fast. So it makes it so you can continue your work in a relatively short period of time. Personally, I found that using the various forms of isopropyl alcohol would evaporate and oftentimes leave a white chalky residue, and really makes your sculpt kind of look ugly. Next, I'm going to switch to the 3/4 inch brush, and I'm going to use a scumbling method. Now, I know scumbling is not the correct term for this. That's a technique used in oil painting, but I'm kind of scraping and kind of bumbling around, just real random. And this is kind of sanding the texture, or sanding any texture that's on there off, getting it real good and smoothed out. So might add just a little bit more lighter fluid. You can see that the gloss is going away, and that's because the lighter fluid is evaporating, and we don't want this to get too firmed up yet because we got a ways to go. So that's pretty well scraped up, smoothed out. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my glazing brush. It's got nice soft nylon bristles. And again, I'm going to dip it in the lighter fluid. And now I'm going to just start erasing all of the brush strokes that are in this. And I'm going to do this until I start to see that, that gloss kind of start to go away. So just a light touch. Most of the brush strokes are just going to disappear, and it'll leave you with a nice flat surface to work with. Now, it's not super imperative that you get it completely flat, since this is actually a skin texture. A little bit of irregularities will just add to the organic feel of the work. But I definitely don't want to get these little foam boogers in here. So get rid of that. And then just introduce another one. Sometimes that happens. All right. There's a few more little boogers in here, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. You can always just touch them with your finger and they'll go away real quick. just like that. All right, so we've got that pretty well smoothed out, good enough for us to go ahead and begin working with. So now we're going to start doing the stippling. I'm going to stipple with my chip brush that is about an inch, maybe a little bit longer. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get it cleaned up. It's got some clay embedded in the bristles, and I don't want to really be introducing that. So I'm going to dip it real good, start to dissolve that clay that's in the bristles. And then I'm going to take my brush cleaning brush that I use, and I'm just going to scrape anything that's in there off. That'll give me a good clean working surface. There we go. Now, one last dip, and I'm going to begin stippling. My first layer here, I got a lot of solvent on this brush, so I'm being kind of light with the stipple. That's just to get the lighter fluid into the clay. All right. Now that I've got it all kind of saturated again, now I'm going to start hitting it really, really hard. So just beat the devil out of it, as our famous friend Bob Ross liked to say. Just beat the devil out of it. So this is going to leave kind of a sandpaper, gritty kind of texture. However, as you hit it real hard like this, you're going to see the brush bristles are going to be spreading out, and it will kind of leave some fan marks. So don't sweat it. We're going to go back over it with a lighter touch to erase those. But right now, we really just want to hit it really hard because we want to create a lot of roughness in this. That's pretty good right there. So as you can see, I'm picking up a lot of clay in that. So I'm going to wipe it off on my turntable here just to keep the brush pretty clean. Now I'm going to go back over that entire area, same brush, little bit lighter of a touch. This is just to eliminate the fan marks. And if you leave a few, it's not that big of a deal because the next step will definitely get rid of them. So just real lightly tapping, just like that. And you can experiment with this, build up bigger textures or less, more subtle ones, whatever you like. This is pretty good for what we're working with right here. Bring the camera in so you can see it real good. So you can see how that's got a real rough kind of texture. So what we're going to do now is we're going to leave that sit for about 15 minutes. I have a fan I'm going to position on it because I want to try to dry that up as much as possible and allow the lighter fluid to evaporate, because our next step, we actually need this to be kind of firm. If I were to touch this with my finger right now, it would instantly just obliterate what we've just done. So let's take a quick break. We'll come back and then we'll finish this texture. In the meantime, before you go, make sure you click on the subscribe button. That way you'll know when new videos hit the internet. And be sure to also go to Facebook and check out Uncle Monster's Decaffeinated Designs, and also on YouTube. So with that being said, let's take our break and come right back in a few minutes. All right, so it's been about 15 minutes now, and the clay has had enough time to firm up. So let's go ahead and continue. So first we'll move our fan out of the way. And I also allowed my glazing brush to dry out slightly because I don't want it too wet. What we're going to do now is we're going to take the glazing brush, and with a very, 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 very light touch, we're going to just go right over the top of all of that sandpaper-like texture, and we're going to knock the high points down. When you start doing this, depending on how wet your clay is, you're going to want to start with a very, very delicate touch and then increase the firmness as you see fit. So I'm just barely even putting any pressure, and I can see that it's a little drier than what I really like. So I'm going to increase my pressure. Now I'm also going to vary the directions. This should not leave brush strokes If it is, then your sculpt may still be too wet, or you may be using too much pressure. So I'm just going to go all over everywhere and just kind of knock it down. And it does actually kind of look like knockdown on drywall. If you've ever done any drywall work in your house, you're familiar with that. This is going to give you kind of the same texture. So, and you can go over this as much as you'd like to get it just the way you like it. I could leave it just like this, or I could go to the next level. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to dip my brush in a little bit of solvent, the lighter fluid here, just a little bit. And then I'm going to just kind of hit it. And that's going to just barely dissolve the top and kind of give you that kind of older skin with not a whole lot of collagen left in it type of look. There we go. Just remember to vary your directions. And if you need, get a little bit more. Don't overwork it, but if you do, don't sweat it. You can always re-stipple and start over till you get it just the way you like. There we go. Now, it doesn't look like much on a raw sculpt. However, once you actually paint this and do a wash on it, it'll really bring out that texture, and it's a great texture. Again, like I said, an arm distance texture, but it also works as the base for doing a lot of more advanced textures. So that's pretty much the end of it. So if you enjoyed the video, do yourself a favor. Click on the subscribe button. Make sure you like it and share it with your friends. You never know, this may reach out to someone and help them learn some new techniques. So that's it for this one. Thank you for joining. Thanks for watching, and catch us on the next tutorial. Until then, stay scary, my friends.